Let's talk about price controls. They're everywhere. Everybody's talking about them. Politicians are throwing out there. And what does it actually mean and what can we expect? Of course, there's some good things about the price control pieces, but there's also really, really bad and negative connotations and implications, negative results that can arise from price controls. So let's talk about it. Now, price controls, as the name says it itself, basically means that you lock that price of loaf of bread at $1 or $2 or wherever it is and leave it be or minimize the amount that it can actually go up by. It sounds really lovely from the consumer end of things because it's easier for us to plan, right? If I know that bread costs $1 today and it's going to cost $1 5 years from now, it's very easy for me to budget. And if I get any salary increases, it's kind of lovely because I'm actually able to keep more of my money as opposed to only trying to keep up. On the other hand, for individuals that are actually producing the goods and services that are going to be locked in for a price, there's a problem because most of them have employees, they have plants, they have different properties and machines and upkeep and the animals or the raw produce that comes in. And so the trickle down effect of that could potentially create many problems and challenges. Growing up in Serbia, I have experienced this firsthand back in roughly about 90s, late 80s. We started entering into a civil war in the 90s. We've experienced hyperinflation that is actually worse than Weimar Germany, but most people, it's not as famous out there outside of the economists. So one of the reasons that we've also see some of the challenges as the inflation started to go up, the government decided that they were going to do what? Price controls. That's right. You guessed it right. So what ended up happening is that yes, the bread was locked in at $1. The problem came in that nobody wanted to make the bread at $1 because for that baker, he or she was losing money making the bread and then became a challenge similar to what we're seeing right now, at least here in US where I live, where you go to a grocery store and there's actually more empty shelves than full ones. It's a very eerie feeling. We've seen it when the pandemic first hit, where all of the shelves started to empty, or we see it when we expecting some sort of national forecast weather thing to show up in our area. But this has been ongoing for a little while, where you walk in, the prices keep going up, and the amount of items that exist on those shelves keep going down. We're clearly having some supply challenges. We're clearly having some inflation challenges, and putting in a price control, while it might potentially, allegedly, look to solve some of the pricing stuff or the inflation impact that we are seeing, it also has a very good chance that we might find ourselves with even emptier store shelves. Because let's think about it. If in order for me to sell a bread for $1, say that I have to be able to produce it, deliver it, the whole 9 yards for 90 cents. That way I can pay off everybody and make 10 cents per loaf, right? Makes sense. If the price of the goods and services that I have to counter, so the gas to take that bread over to the store, the truck driver, the bakers in my bakery, the machines that I have, the raw materials that I have to get in, if all of that continues to go up in price, at some point you come to the point where it doesn't make sense for you to make things and it doesn't make sense to work. And that is what we're seeing a bit of right now. And any price control will likely continue to expand on that. So if there's ever time to think about what price control may or may not do, I think it's important to think about it and talk about it. One of the pieces that I'm thinking about it is if that actually ends up happening, what are the implications down the line? Now, as somebody who's grown up with it and lived through it and lived to tell you about it, I will tell you, it became ugly. The underground markets opened up all over the place. We were converting our currency for a stronger currency. Now, in United States, that might not happen, but it is possible. We've seen it, I've seen it. So it is possible that something like that could happen. The other pieces that we've also seen is that you walk into a grocery store, for example, and you don't buy a pack of gum. You buy a piece of gum. That was my lived experience that I get to talk about now and sort of use as a not so pleasant memory, but memory nonetheless. So, those are some of the things that I have seen and witnessed that we could expect to see. The other pieces that we've seen is that folks will go in and try different ways of obtaining, probably not the most legal ways of obtaining certain things. And underground markets opened up where you can go in and purchase some of the goods and services for less money or even for more money, but at least you can have it. So growing up, one of the pieces, for example, bread, we always talk about it. It's a staple for many people in many homes. And there were days where you couldn't get any. And when the word would come out that a baker would deliver bread, there would be a loaf of bread coming in, there would be a swarm of people, and you kind of had to go in and literally fight for it. So that's something that I don't want to see here in the United States or anywhere else around the world for that matter, but it is something and something to think about and consider as people continue to talk about price controls for goods and services. Hey, thanks for watching. If you've learned anything over here, if you agree or disagree, make sure you leave the comments below. Make sure you set the subscribe button, the bell button notification, and I will see you in the next episode.